Hey, welcome to episode 115 of Decentralized Revolution. Of course, it's the Mises Caucus podcast. We've been doing this for a few weeks. Brandi Bishop is with me again. Mike apparently had some sort of Bitcoin emergency like just minutes ago, so he's not going to be joining us this week. But we do have Robbie Bernstein. It's been a while since we've had you on. You obviously are the king of the Caucus, as it says right there on your title there. So how has 2023 been treating you, my friend?
Oh, man, I'm loving this year. Touring more now than ever, so I'm having a blast.
So what is it? Is the whole comedy thing like coming back? Like, is it like back to pre-COVID levels, or what's that whole scene been like over the last couple of years, being in and out of the normal routine?
So, I mean, it was definitely way different over COVID because clubs shut down, but the general comedy landscape has just changed a lot for me personally because I'm not really in at New York City clubs that much, and I do find I'm sometimes off-putting to general audiences, but luckily I'm able to tour and do my own thing. I got summer porch tours, so I'm going to be at people's houses. I think I'm doing 20 independent shows in people's backyards and living rooms all the way through October, and then all the weekends I'm not doing that. Dave Smith's actually touring this year, which is cool as hell, being on the road and just seeing packed houses of full clubs showing up. And so I'm having a blast. It's different for me. I'm not really like working the New York City clubs, but I'm able to headline my own shows or do really big shows with Dave on the road. So this is the funnest it's ever been for me.
That's got to be like the end of an era, or even like 2 or 3 eras, right? Because like every comic that I ever heard of, they cut their teeth, in New York, and then they go out to, the Comedy Store in LA or something like that. But like is that whole scene just like dead now in New York, or has it changed so much? Is it politically correct? Like, what's the deal?
New York's lively as all hell. I'm just not invited to the party. So, you got the Comedy Sellers expanding to another room, doing maybe 15 shows a night. It's packed with clubs and stuff. So no, New York City's definitely a very active comedy scene.
Wait, what do you mean you're not invited to the party?
Oh, I'm just not I haven't been around in the same capacity as I was in other years. A lot of the spots that I used to work, it's different bookers. So there's, I've just been more focused on podcasting and building my own shows and doing my own shows as opposed to hanging out, trying to get bookers to watch my stuff. And a lot of the comedy I put together now is like kind of a little bit more long form than doing shorter stuff that I think would be suited for like a New York City audition spot. And then I do a fair amount of material that not to even say like some of the bunches of material I've done that I really liked or was excited about, I definitely worked out in New York City, but I had to swallow some serious bombs and really putting off crowds to put that stuff together. So it's not at the moment, it's not really my focus. And luckily with podcasting, I'm able to kind of go out there and do my own thing. And let me tell you, there's nothing I enjoy more now than doing the porch tour shows, where it's the hardcore fans showing up, bringing their own lawn chairs, bringing their cooler of beers, booking some of my best friends to come on the road with me, and being able to do 45, 50 minutes, just settle into stuff I would never even try at a comedy club.
Come to a show in Boston.
I would like to, hopefully come November, December. I'm definitely going to go back to the Shell. Shell's been one of the best venues for me. I've filmed the last 3 years in a row. Those guys, it's a great room. Those guys are a great audience. They're really supportive of what I do. So I will definitely, hopefully be doing the Shell again end of year. I don't think I'm going to do another end of year recap like I did the last 2 years, but I definitely want to close out the year there if I got enough new material. And I haven't done Boston now in at least a year, so I feel like I've got a good 45 minutes of material I've done since the last time I was there. So, the problem is, Boston, what happened with Porch Tour, no one from Boston hit me up. That becomes a lot of it, is just where do people hit me up that they got a porch? And then I spend a month at home just doing logistics. It sucks trying to figure out 3-day routes. Because for me, I got to figure out basically how to go to a region and do different shows Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, piggybacking on plane tickets, and then figuring out when it's cheaper to go to certain areas. There's a lot of logistics and planning that goes into it. So the answer is Boston's awesome. I'd love to do Boston for Porch Tour. No one volunteered a porch, but hopefully come December when I do the Shell, I'll hit up one of those comedy clubs and headline for a night.
I don't really have a porch, or I'd let you do mine.
I'll just steal a neighbor's.
I don't know if that'll work. But I have a backyard. Does that count?
Yeah. It doesn't have to actually be porches. Backyards totally work. And you're not in Boston. Are you in Boston proper?
No.
No? Yeah, so like if it's a suburb, I would say the draw is between like 30 and 100 people. It kind of depends. Like the more we're actually in a city, the more people that are showing up for it. But if you're in a suburb of Boston, I'd eyeball 40, 50 people out on the lawn. It's usually pretty manageable.
Yeah.
Word.
So like how big, what's the difference of the atmosphere of doing a porch tour show versus a comedy club? So it's presumably the porch tour, everybody there knows your stuff. It's like a band playing in front of their fans.
Yeah.
Versus opening for a band that has never heard of them, right?
So the Dave shows are a little bit more of there's like a slightly different aesthetic. The Dave shows, like I still get a little bit of intimidated because you get like 250 fans. It's a packed house, and the comedy club atmospheres. These comedy clubs are built out, so like they got perfect sound systems, perfect lighting. They got a green room. I get to hang out with Dave, and it's like it's a total thrill. But there's a little bit like I feel like the stuff's got to be polished, and like you're coming out. Whereas I don't know, Porch Tour, it's a different scene in that like I'm there. You're hanging out with all the people while you're setting up. Sometimes I hang out late. You know what I mean? We're drinking beers. It's just kind of a slightly different aesthetic, and I definitely find there's material and stories that I would not do even for our clubs and comedy in comedy clubs that I will do like in the yards, especially when it's like newer. I don't know. That's when I'm having the most fun, is like when you're really, also it's like fun when you get to really do like a full 45, 50. It's different. Like they're just different. Like I love them both. We're almost like talking about two hot women I get to have sex with, which doesn't actually exist in my life. But I'm just saying, like, we're like, it's the nuance of like, these are two things that I absolutely love, and like they're slightly different, but I love both of them.
But like the whole podcast thing, like for so many comedians, like it seems like all the hot comedians that like people are telling me about are people who like have their own podcast and have kind of come at things in an alternative way versus
I don't know how you can get over as a pure comedian, particularly if you're doing something that's not more woke or very brand friendly. I don't know. I don't really know what that route is. It's a little bit different now that Joe Rogan's got his comedy club because he's the biggest platform and he's kind of investing in people. So like it's a little bit different, but I can just talk. There you go. DIY punk rock. Yeah, Porch Tour's definitely got a punk rock feel to it, which is funny to me that like with COVID and my political opinions, I could brand myself as like a dangerous individual because I'm the most conservative whiny Jew that's ever existed. Like, so it's funny to me that I even get to pull off like a punk rock brand. I love that.
That's a pretty tough competition. I mean, putting yourself as the anyway.
Yeah, but back to just within the comedy landscape, like all of my friends who are extremely funny and even more senior than I am. And when I was working the comedy clubs, Dave was one of the funniest guys going up, and we're talking like. And in terms of what I was interested in with comedy, like he was, exploring these topics in Liberty, or at the time when he was getting up every week, I don't always watch everyone's sets, but I would always watch Dave's set because like whatever was going on in the news that week, he had the best jokes on it. But like even a guy like Dave or Lewis, like most of the guys I know who are even more senior than me in comedy and super funny, they all got over like through podcasting. I know very few people whose comedy I love that like of the modern age of comedians who broke through like as pure stand-ups. I don't even think I don't think there's one that even comes to mind.
Yeah. Yeah, because like 30 years ago, you had to do the comedy clubs, you get on Comedy Central, you get a special, and it was all through these just few small, big channels, but it was just like these very small doorways you had to go through to get it. So I just think it's amazing that guys who you never heard of 6 months ago or now everybody knows them, and it's all through podcasts, which is, I mean, thankfully that's kind of, with politics and stuff too, that, the Liberty movement and stuff, like there's no way we would be able to, I mean, we got a lot of work to do. I mean, we're not even anywhere close to where we need to be, but like if it wasn't for, the alternative media, podcasts, Twitter, stuff like that, like it would be even more bleak than it feels like it is sometimes. So I'm glad because, and also I've heard some comedians talk a lot. I think Rogan has talked, I was listening to him the other day. an older episode of just like how, so many people who were comedians who, you think of comedians as the people who are willing to say things that other people aren't, who think differently about things. And it seems like half of that industry, according to some people I've heard, just kind of went totally in on the COVID thing. And so I think they may have lost a lot of their, I would think that some of them would have lost fans over that. Am I right?
I would have I would have hoped that people would have lost more. Here's the thing. I think we're in the best environment ever in my lifetime for teaching people about liberty. I don't think people particularly like the Republican or Democratic Party right now. I think people are probably more open than ever to the idea that they're being lied to. I think like there's probably more disenfranchised individuals from... Like, I actually think if you talk to most Republicans, here's the feeling I get from most Republicans. You get some, let's say, and they're very rare, like the really Christian conservative Republicans who might still believe a little bit more aggressively in foreign policy and wars or like policing drug usage. Those Republicans now are very rare. I find most Republicans, if you talk to them, they're actually libertarians, and they either don't know that libertarians exist or they just want to win. So what I mean by that is they feel, and I actually think if you look at the current political landscape, this is not even, 5 years ago I would have said, I don't like these individuals who are just voting against someone else. I thought, to me, you were throwing away your vote. But I look at the current landscape of just how evil the Democratic Party is in terms of stripping us of free speech, really pushing socialism forward in terms of like the rackets of the ESG scores, pushing green energy. And I understand why in this current landscape, people just go like, I need to unwind how aggressively the Democratic Party is pushing forward. Socialism, taking away free speech. It's just like things that shouldn't even be on the table. And so now I kind of understand why Republican voters, the reluctance of hopping into the Libertarian Party is thinking, we got to beat the Democrats right now. I'm like 4 years ago, I was not sympathetic to that because I was like, hey, both these parties suck and don't just throw away your vote, actually earn your vote. So just to like, I think we're in the best environment for teaching people about liberty. I think one of the biggest problems in terms of actually converting people over to, on a national level at least, voting libertarian is that people are rightfully fearful of the Democratic Party and like they want to win.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of people that are like disenfranchised Democrats as well. A lot of Democrats, I think, are getting sick of their party too. And that like it's no longer the old Democratic Party. It's no longer like the party of the working class. So all of them are also trying to find something else. I think there's definitely people on both sides.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. However, going back to the comedy point, I was surprised because I would have thought part of what I liked in comedy, particularly with the social commentators that I'm a fan of, that the ones that weren't more anti-COVID would have lost some of their brand for not speaking, in my opinion, to truth. But at the end of the day, a lot of those guys are still just purely funny. So like take like Dave Chappelle, for example. I don't remember that he made pro-COVID vaccine jokes, but I don't remember him standing up against it. And I almost feel like on one of those SNL appearances, he was a little bit, I don't quite remember, but he's still one of the...
Bill Burr was pretty pro the
Bill
vaccine.
Bill Burr was pretty pro.
But he's funny as fuck, so what are you going to do?
What was that?
But he's funny as fuck, so what are you going to do?
That's what I was going to say, is that those guys are still just so unbelievably funny. And their brand, even though it's social commentary, so like you would think that getting things right or being on the right side of these issues maybe should, but at the end of the day, like they're still unbelievably powerful comedians. So I don't think the market's that upset at them for getting what most people got wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chappelle, some of his stuff, like he got some flack because he was performing like way before like other people were and stuff like that. And I've heard some jokes and stuff that he made that he kind of didn't really go too far in either direction. And like, I love Dave. Like I have a couple of Dave Chappelle stories because I used to live in like the same county that he did in Ohio. And he's a great guy. I think he's one of the top 4 or 5 ever. And when we hear somebody, because he does have a lot of libertarian things that he says, and so you hear a little bit of that, and I'm always rooting for him to come out and like, give a whole like Ron Paul type thing, but that's not what he does, right? Like he's above that. And in part of me, like when I think about it, like I want Dave to be Dave, right? I don't want him to be exactly who I want him to be, because then he's not as funny and as unpredictable to me. So I get that. So I would be disappointed and would be shocked if he kind of came out and said something, completely stupid. And Burr, like he's okay to me. Everybody seems to like him a lot more than I do, but like he seems to me the kind of guy that like he intentionally is abrasive, and even if he might agree with us on the COVID stuff, I could see him like just riffing against what he believes in just to make people mad.
Well, so as a collective, even though comedy's not a collective, but as a whole, I was pretty disappointed with everyone through COVID, that they were like, I don't know, we're supposed to be cool and like not listening to authority, in my opinion, being a little bit more dangerous. And the fact that comedians were like, how dare you post this, or how dare you not wear a mask, or oh my God, you weren't vaccinated, or you can't be in this club. I can't believe the club's held to that. So the fact that even though it's not the television comedy industry, but the club industry, and even the like most comedians I know kind of bought into it, that I was very surprised by. And like I just thought there would have been more of a flavor of like, yeah, we're not people that listen to the government. Yeah. But I saw Doug Stanhope, who's my personal favorite, and Doug Stanhope's the greatest. And I saw him do a bit where he was talking from the opposite perspective of he started off the bit being like, I got vaccinated. And he was so funny about the other opinion, even though I didn't agree with him. And that I love. I love when people have like a different perspective and they're still just so funny with it. And I'm going to butcher his joke, but like I even understood where he was coming from, which was, I got vaccinated because I just want to move on, and fuck you guys. Like, you're not actually researching anything. None of us are this smart. None of us know anything. I don't care. You're being annoying. And then he took a different perspective than I did, which was like, they also told me it was illegal to drink alcohol when I was 16. And then he like very funny went through like the process of what it took to make a fake ID in that day. And he's like, just opt out. Like he was like, that was his approach to it, was just do what you want to do. You can kind of opt out from compliance, which was not my perspective. But I thought it was so interesting that, because you look at some of his comedy, he's done some of the best comedy that's like driven from a libertarian angle. If you haven't seen it, he's got like a long-winded bit of he does one whole his best special, which is the one from Showtime, where he's wearing like a jersey that says libertarian on it. I forget the name of it, but if you're not like familiar with Doug Stanhope's material, that's like the single best hour. He did it for show. What was, anyone know what the name of it? You guys buy your computers, maybe you can look it up. He did a special for Showtime. I think maybe it might have been called No Refunds. But aside from that, he's got like this bit where he's just up there. I think it's 20 minutes in black and white, and he's talking about marriage. He's talking about licensing laws. Like,
what's his last name? Douglas what?
Doug Stanhope. Yep. Whatever. You can just take my word for it. I'm pretty sure it was called No Refunds.
I don't think I've ever heard of him. I didn't even know he's a libertarian.
Yeah, you got to go check him out. I think his politics, he's a little less into and a little less political now. Not that I want to speak for him, but if you listen to some of his earlier albums, he's got the most brilliant material on the topic of liberty.
Yeah.
I will say in Boston, I noticed I go to a lot of comedy shows because I book comedians, and I've noticed that the comedians are actually getting more edgy. Like comedians that I think early on, like I would say probably 3 years ago, would have been not willing to like break taboos. I'm seeing a lot more comedians like feeling more comfortable with breaking taboos. And
I think
what topics? Really what topics?
Even like comedians joking about how they took the vaccine. Like comedians. Oh God, I can't even remember. There's this one particular segment, like show that they do. It's called Don't Tell Comedy, and it's basically like you don't know where the comedy show is, and it's always in like these random ass places. Like one, it looked like a person's apartment, but it was like a gallery. And so you show up, and it's very intimate. It's a BYOB, and
porch store style.
What? But yeah, it's
porch store style, right there.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very fun. But the comedians are definitely not feeling as woke as they used to. Mm-hmm. And I think it's becoming like the wokeness. People aren't as like the crowd doesn't feel as into it anymore. And I think the comedians are seeing that, and so they're adjusting.
I think
well.
a lot of it's just market driven of where the opportunity is, and that's to me one of the biggest problems with the power of Fed money and socialism. The purest example of it is, back in the day, the CIA was buying Andy Warhol paintings and also Jackson Pollock paintings because they wanted to pretend like the American art market was where the demand was to like showcase how we were beating the Russians. And like that's what they were doing. They were just buying it up to go look at how highly this is valued because it's more popular. And you see that with advertisers, which what they've tried to do with in terms of like CNN, Fox News. It's a way of putting more money into what they like to see and what they want to be socially acceptable. However, the gatekeepers, it's breaking down. If you look at the comedians that are being put out, like 5 years ago, you kind of needed to get on TV, you kind of needed to get on Comedy Central for exposure. Like I said, there's no pure comedians, and there's no one that we really respect, like as comedians or thinks really funny that's like, I don't know, got a Tonight Show. Like the last one who maybe came up that way and everyone agrees is hilarious and is kind of apolitical is probably Nate Bargatze. But even that's like, he's probably one of the best ever to do comedy, and that's already going back 7 or 8 years ago. If you're looking at the comedy market now, people are coming up on comedy podcasts, which are, don't care to not be offensive, or people are getting put over on Kill Tony. They're getting put over because of Skankfest and Legion of Skanks. So I think the market's kind of turned right now where it's like, yeah, if you want to play that, woke game of that stuff, I guess maybe on the club level, they might still be trying to promote that, but in terms of the actual market, I don't think that's where the market for comedy is. And if there's one thing I was hoping was that when the wheel turned, people would realize I had a decade of not giving a shit. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, it definitely feels like the audiences are liking things that feel authentic, and I think when it's super woke, it doesn't feel authentic at all, and it feels like it's try hard, and everyone's like, ugh. Well,
sometimes you're just like you're stating an opinion and getting claps. Like I think one of the when Louis did the "my daughter's an asshole" thing, that became extremely hacky, and there was a lot of versions of that. But there was another one of just "white is bad." That was kind of like a big clapped or talking point in comedy clubs. So
there's still some of that in Boston where it's like,
oh really?
Well,
I bet Kill Tony, like if we were to actually study it academically 4 or 5 years in the future from now, I bet Kill Tony's had a big impact because that really celebrates, filthy open mic comedy, and I think that's one of the big shows that's putting people over right now. So I bet people who are doing open mic now, it's maybe becoming a little bit more acceptable to be edgy like that.
To me, if I was a comedian, the last thing I would want is for people to clap for one of my jokes.
Oh, I wish that was true. Well, you just don't want them to stare at you. That's it.
Want silence.
Yeah, every once in a while you say something that gets a clap and you're like, I'll take it, thank you.
Well, but like maybe a clap after a long, actual spontaneous laugh. But like if the first thing they do is clap, to me that's just like, maybe you're making good money at that point because people know what they're going to get and they're ready for it to clap. But clapping is not a spontaneous thing that comes from your soul. Laughter is, right? And so, like to me, when I see, like if I see something and there's people are clapping for the comedian, I'm just like, that's not what that is to me. It's but like even if I think an audience is like, hey, we're not supposed to laugh at this. If you're funny about it, even if it is a culturally taboo thing, people are still going to laugh anyway. I mean, some people may, you may have a couple of people who are like stub up and make a show of not laughing, but most normal people will laugh at a taboo joke if it's done well, because that's the whole point of jokes, right? Is to provoke that unfiltered response of laughter. So, yeah.
Yeah,
or just to have the room look horrified at you.
Yeah.
Have you ever walked a room like ran everybody off?
I don't really have the luxury of that because I don't. But
okay.
I've definitely walked individual. When I used to work in Times Square more, I definitely walked individuals. There's no question about that. And I've definitely bombed and had an entire room not like me. But I've never, well, I shouldn't even say I've never walked a whole room. And I used to do, it was like the worst spot in comedy. It was at this crap comedy club in Times Square, audiences that had been lied to get in there. And then you had comedians who would absolutely murder, mostly all black. Sometimes there was the one white guy on the show. You had like these really animated black guys who would absolutely murder, and in my opinion, for the most part, if you put their television on comedy, people would be like, this sucks. Like, I think it was all hacky bullshit. Sometimes people would just be talking about the room, they'd be talking about Times Square, or they would just, do crowd work, but they all fucking murdered. I mean, leveled this room. And then I would go up while people were paying bills, and my God, would that sometimes just go off the rails. And I used to have, like, I sometimes, I mean, it's not, you want to do good comedy, but sometimes it was so off the rails, I would have, like, a check spot act where I was almost just playing around with, like, how bad it was going. And I would start throwing people out of the room, but I'd be like someone would get up, I'd be like that, like I would like cartoonishly get mad, and I'd start yelling at the crowd, like, if you're gonna leave, you gotta leave now. Like, I can't have more people walking out on me, so go now if you're leaving. And then, like, I would stop people right when they got to the door. I'd be like, hey, can you just do me a favor while you're out there? Can you say that it's because you didn't like the last comic? Like, I would start making jokes about like all the people that were walking out. So I've definitely, I mean, not in the last 5 or 6 years, but yeah, when I was working there, I definitely but that was like because they'd already paid their bills. There were a whole lot. They were already like an hour and a half into the show, and they did not like me. So yes, the answer is I've walked rooms.
Yeah. That it takes more guts than I have. Like I'm.
You just got to drink more. It was vodka Red Bulls back then, dude.
Yeah,
by Friday, Saturday night, I was just pounding vodka Red Bulls, and I had all the fake confidence in the world.
Oh wow.
I think comedy's so important though, especially right now, and just like I think that what really is going to make a difference within the liberty movement is culture and like infiltrating, whether it's like comedy, art, like all of these things. Like I think that that's really how, in my opinion, we're going to make a difference in getting and changing people's mind and getting people to think about ideas differently. And comedy is like a societal mirror. Like that's its purpose, is to kind of like reflect society back at itself and make fun of it. So yeah.
Well, I was definitely influenced by Doug's stand-up jokes. I literally didn't know that libertarian was a thing until I was listening to his comedy and realizing, oh yeah, I guess that reflects my opinions more than Republican or Democrat. So
you literally became a libertarian from hearing libertarianism from a comedian?
I would say in part. I don't know that I still ran around with the title, but Dave definitely pulled me further into this libertarian rabbit hole. But yeah, I was definitely first introduced. What was that?
Well, that's another comedian. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, there you go. So I would say it's at least accurate to my libertarian trajectory.
Yeah, I want to go back to something you were saying about like today's Republicans, and also that some of the Republican base and some of the Democrat base not being happy with who they are, who their parties are. And you talked about like Christian conservatives. So I'm a Christian, and I know a lot of those people. And I actually had a totally normie guy who's not political at all. He heard Michael Malice on a podcast. He was like, do you know this guy, Michael Malice? I'm like, yeah. So some of our stuff is filtering through to them. But like, I'm a Gen Xer, and like, I don't know like any Christian people who are like real conservative culturally and tuned into politics, who are younger than me, who are like big on like the we need to police the world and drug war.
Also, are you in the Northeast, or where do you live?
I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee now. I'm from
Ohio.
So
you should be getting some of those good old boy Christians. Go invade Iraq. Where are those people? They still exist.
But I think that a lot of those people are tired of that stuff, and I think they are kind of seeing through. I think Trump gave a lot of those people permission that, I've got like literally down the street, just like a quarter mile, there's a guy with like this huge F Joe Biden flag, and just like all over the place down here. But like all of those people, I think Trump gave them permission to still be like super patriotic, but not have to support the war.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, maybe I'm holding on to a Bush Republican that doesn't really exist anymore. You might be right.
I think they do exist. I think that they might just be mostly Gen X and Boomers. I think that probably Millennials and Gen Z probably not as much.
Well, I think that
we're very anti-war.
I think they're kind of dormant. I think if they manufactured another thing like 9/11, I don't think the government did it. I think they knew about it and took advantage of it. But like, I think that I could see Ron DeSantis. I think he's like the deep states candidate. I could see him like reviving that George W. Bush type thing. So what it shows to me is that those people are not, they're easily led in some ways. on that issue, just because of like being an American is so important to them, and that's why the good politicians and the deep state know how to play that card on people. But if I always said, man, just imagine if like Trump had like 10% of the smarts of Ron Paul and like 1% of the character, like what he could have done.
I think that's an assumption that Trump isn't. I still think that he might be the establishment. Well, I just went on a Republican podcast recently, and they were all very tapped into the Republican politics, and I was like, oh, like they were like the primary is an illusion, like it's there to basically make it seem like you have choice, but like the GOP picks who's going to go through. And then I was like, oh, so who do you think, who's the GOP like candidate right now? And they're like, Trump, which is weird because I would think it would be DeSantis, but I don't know. I'm not fully completely convinced that Trump isn't an establishment politician.
Well, he definitely wasn't the last go around. If he is the establishment now, it's just because he's so undeniably popular that some of the establishment realizes that they need him to win. But I think like the real establishment, I think you're right. I think they're trying to get rid of him, and they'd much rather, dude, if they go with DeSantis versus Newsom, it's like the deep state one. We're just back to what America is supposed to be in their eyes.
Yeah, that's back to like Bush v. Gore. Those are like the exact same two people, just updated for 2024.
So you think Newsom's going to be the Biden replacement?
We'll see what happens. It seems like they want Biden out at this point, and I don't think they're going to be able to hide his mental incompetence for too much longer.
Do you think that's why the Coke was there? Why they made a big deal about the Coke? Is that
I think it's reasonable that. Yes, I wouldn't say for sure, but like, I don't know who found it, why they find it. It does seem to fit the narrative of them just like poking at him like, hey, we're going to make this a little bit more difficult, but we'll see.
Well, I said this a week or two ago on the show, and I'm going to keep saying it because if it pays off and I'm right, it's going to look really cool. But my whole theory is that Biden is going to run. Going to keep running. RFK will challenge. There will be no debates. He'll get like 20 or 30% in the primaries, but Biden will win. They'll get to the convention and, in the summer, and then they'll nominate him and Kamala. And then like right after, like he's going to like, get sick or not be breathing anymore or like, hey, something's going to happen. He'll resign, and they're going to swap him out and put Newsom in, because the party can do that. After the party nominates somebody, they can.
Why wouldn't it be Kamala though?
Well, because she's Kamala Harris. She's even more unlikable than Hillary. Like they know. I think that would look bad, but I think they would do it. So I think that my thing is, I think Newsom is going to be swapped out at the last minute for.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I don't think the Democratic Party can afford to have debates, because if they did. No. RFK Jr. must be polling high enough that they would be forced to reckon with him, and I don't think RFK Jr.'s polling remarkably well for the fact that if you talk to most Democratic like establishment people, like my family, who are probably I would assume the women in my family are just like Democratic voters. I don't think they know who the hell he is. So I think if he got TV exposure, people would be like, wait, there's a Kennedy? And wow, he seems to be making sense on a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I don't like wars either. So, oh my God, so I think they cannot afford to be in a debate with RFK Jr. So you might be right that they have to wait until they nominate Biden to just swap him out. That I hadn't thought about that, but that sounds reasonable to me.
To me, it's the safest play for them, and it'll get sympathy, whatever. And I think if you look at what Newsom's doing, he's basically already sort of running a campaign. He did that video that we did on the show 2 or 3 weeks ago about he's proposing a constitutional amendment to like modify the Second Amendment, and it looks just like a campaign commercial. And I think both him and DeSantis are they're both running for 28 at this point. I think they both know that unless my thing happens with, I still think that's about a 20% chance, but I think they're both laying the groundwork to be the front runners going in. But I just think that this 2024, as a libertarian, I'm just like really worried for us as a party. And of course, getting presidential votes is not the biggest thing. that's like a recruiting thing and a ballot access thing, and more importantly, it's just an education and advertising campaign if we do it right. But like, I think that what Robbie was saying earlier, that like everybody on both sides, like a lot of these younger Republicans who are very culturally conservative are still going to vote for Trump or DeSantis or whoever because the Democrats are so bad. And I have a hard time blaming them, right? I mean, I can tell them why they're wrong, but I'm not going to get anywhere. And I think a lot of Democrats are exactly the same because they've just been told that Trump and DeSantis are so bad. So I think that it's going to be so team red versus blue that even a lot of libertarian-ish people, libertarian adjacent, who they're going to hold their nose and vote for Trump or whoever. And I think we're going to be lucky to get 0.5% as a party. So
depends on who runs.
Yeah, well,
hopefully we figure that out soon. But yeah, if Newsom, that just sounds like the worst fucking election ever. Like, I'm gonna be so pissed if it's Newsom. I can't even stand looking at his face. He just makes me angry. So I am not excited if that is actually the case, because, like, yeah. But I did hear someone say that they thought that the Hunter Biden Coke thing was like the gateway of that, like them trying to potentially get him out. But the thing is that I don't think it was planted, because did you see like Hunter Biden, like there's like a video of him with like
enjoying his freedom after getting let off on taking China bribes, and just enjoying the holiday with his family after he found out that they're just letting him off the hook on all of it? God bless.
No, but there's like a video of him on the 4th of July, and you just see Jill Biden's face, and she's just like, you can tell it's like that, like, I'm not gonna lose it right now, and you just see fucking
well, her entire
Hunter
life
Biden
is
in the
with
back,
that face,
just like looking cracked out. So I was like, I think I know who that Coke belonged to. It's definitely that guy.
Yeah, well, she's got to spend her whole life pretending like Joe Biden's coherent, so that's just her look.
She just looked like so like, oh God, I'm so over this.
Except she's actually not. Like, I think Melania hated it. I think Melania's like, I married rich guy. Like, I want to be on boat. It's like, I don't think she wanted it. You know what I mean? She didn't want any of the drama. She hated it. She turns around. She's like, we're going to be in the fucking White House? Like, I married this rich dummy. What the hell am I doing? I want to buy clothing, be out in public, shop, and be left alone. Like, I hate this.
She's basically a sugar baby.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, I didn't get imported from Eastern Europe to have to pretend like I care about American politics. That's not what I was promised when I was purchased and traded off of a boat. But Jill Biden, on the other hand, she seems to love this and want to keep Joe in the game.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think she has an issue with that. I think it was more her face was upset at the
Jill's
fact
like,
that
he's
Coke
gonna
was
shit his pants at home or on the campaign trail. What do I care?
I would like to help Melania co-write her, ghostwrite her autobiography. She's got to have some stories. If she's not just like completely,
it was
stupid,
mostly being in a ditch until Trump saved her.
Yeah, like what? I mean, I've heard that she's not like super dumb or anything like that. So like that, to me, that's a weird life to choose, to marry a guy like that, knowing what you're going to get, and then getting that, plus he runs for president and wins. Like,
Trump behind the scenes, like take the stupidity and the evil of Trump out of it. Do you think he's ever not fun to hang out with? Like, you know, those people in your life, you don't want to rely on them, or you don't think they're good people, but if you show up to a party, you're like, oh, that guy's here. I'm sure Trump's a fucking blast. And he's worth billions. It's not like you married a fun construction worker, loudmouth. You know what I mean? I can understand why a lady... Brandi, back me up here. You like men sometimes. Could you see why Trump was attractive to a lady?
I mean, I could say, like,
And also, you also got to realize, I think Trump's pretty tall. Trump's tall. He's got money. Like, that's 90% of what women are looking for.
Well, I would say like the only thing that would have been his selling point for me is that he's funny. Like he could be funny. So like I mean every girl has like their things that they like, you know, the most. I would say for for someone like me, I prefer someone that's funny. The money, like that's just like a bonus, you know.
Right.
But
I thought Norm Macdonald had the best take on women who like funny men. Is that he goes, you know, every lady says that she likes funny men, but then they'll laugh at all of George Clooney's jokes. And I think there's some truth to that. That like all of a sudden you get some tall, handsome guy, and you're laughing at everything because he's tall and handsome.
Hey, Bill Burr's married, and he's not a 10. Louis C.K. was married, not a 10. I'd say like they get the ladies still.
I hear you.
I kind of think DeSantis' wife's kind of hot. Is that weird?
No, she's okay looking.
I need to look her up. Is George Clooney tall though?
He's George Clooney. Doesn't matter. It's like Tom Cruise at that point.
He's 5.
Tom Cruise
5'11".
isn't tall.
No, Tom Cruise is like 5'4".
Yeah, he's really short.
And he wears the secret heels.
Which I think Tom Cruise is a really weird guy, but I cannot wait. I got my tickets already to see IMAX the Mission Impossible. I love those movies. I'm scared of, I am absolutely terrified of heights. So like going to those movies is like watching a horror movie for me. It's like so much adrenaline. And
right.
I love that guy for doing those movies, and I don't care that he's a crazy Scientologist and possibly in the closet or whatever. Like I just those movies are great.
Hey, he puts out a summer blockbuster every summer, so
I know, right?
can't hate it.
Hey, I don't judge people for their religious affiliations. If the man wants to be a Scientologist.
Yeah, the person with the witch setup ready to run a ceremony after this.
It's not a witch setup. Oh my God, no.
Yeah, you got the Ouija board. I know what's going on back there.
Yeah, what is that going on back there?
What?
What is
okay. These are like Hindu gods. It's Ganesh. I have like mythology. That's what's going on back there.
You're going to run a witch ceremony later. I get it.
Do you have Vivek back there? Is that it? Oh, that's not a Hindu god. That's a
Vivek is the presidential candidate.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So what do you, there was something else I was going to ask you about, Robbie. But like, no, what do you think about, what about Vivek and some of the other guys? Like, any of those guys going anywhere, do you think? Or are they just, I think like Nikki Haley and the other guy, I think they're all just like wanting to be in somebody's administration or the next administration after that. But Vivek actually, I think he's like really dumb on a couple of things, but like I think he's the best of that bunch from what I can see.
I read Woke Inc. like, I don't know, 2 years ago or so, like long before he was running for a presidential candidate. And he strikes me like he's the kind of guy who, you know, you would have been in 6th grade with, and then all of a sudden he's a junior in high school and he's in the AP classes. Like, I actually think he's a very, very bright guy.
Yeah. Well, he's Indian, so.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't know. There's something about him that doesn't seem likable enough, or he's almost too smart for what people, I think, look for in modern day politicians. And I'm sure that there's quite a bit that I agree with him on, and he's definitely, like, he's a really bright dude, and he doesn't strike me like he's in it for the same bad reasons as a lot of these other people. But his take on, like, I'd have to, like, actually look through his policy platforms. The only thing I know is really stupid is his one about public service, which is just, it's so unbelievably stupid. And I'll tell you why it's so unbelievably stupid. It's because when you're age 17 or 18, like, you can really, if you're smart and you're a go-getter, you can really invest into a career. And those are your best years to be productive. And you might waste them. Most of us do. Most of us go out and party. But some of the brightest and smartest of us, including probably him at age 17 or 18, you might be working at, like, you're going to be laying the foundations for your career. And if you're a pro-free market person, like, being able to specialize in what you like and then go do something and create, like, make an honest living, that is a incredibly valuable contribution to society. And just conceptually, I hate the idea of, like, oh, you can't vote unless you did some dumb thing for the government for a year. So you gave up your labor to do something that will probably not help your skill set or really, you see what I'm saying? It's like, if you understand the free markets, going and being great at something that you love and making an honest living, like, I don't know, to me, that's righteous right there. You know what I mean?
I've actually heard libertarians make this argument that he makes, saying that
what?
like that the right to vote, you should have to, like, put some service, like
well,
do some sort
I haven't
of
heard
service.
libertarians say service. I've heard things like, oh, you should have to pay taxes, or like own property or pass a test. Like I'm actually amenable to that. Like I think to pass like a quiz on like how many branches of government, what's the bill of rights.
Here's where I take issue with that. And I read years ago, I think it was the logic of political survival, and the general theory was that the smaller the group of like. It was called the selectorate theory, and essentially, whatever amount of people you need in order to be in power, you'll return like goods and favors to those people. So, like for example, if you live in a country like Russia and you need 5 oligarchs to back you, so you don't have to distribute goods and services to that many people. You get 5 people and you got to give them shit, right? Yeah. The wider the pool of people are that are actually selecting you, the more shit that you have to return to them. In some ways, socialism is actually the system working better for common people because more of what's being sucked out of society is actually being returned to, your average individuals. So, like, for example, sometimes I even hear people make the argument that women shouldn't vote because look at how they advance socialist policies because they are a little bit more sucked into ideas like, hey, let's be nice to people. And so they advance socialism. And so women shouldn't vote. I don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why. Because if only men voted, like, we would vote for things that benefited men, because we would then be in the selectorate group, and we would vote for goods and services. Whatever group of people are the allowed people to vote, they're going to vote in ways that benefit them all of the time. So the logic is, well, if you're a landowner, you might have better time preference, or you might vote for things that actually benefit you. Yeah, but I'm still going to be voting for things that benefit me at the expense of the people that aren't allowed to vote. You just become whatever the group is, you become the in-group that's going to vote to take resources from someone else for yourself. So if you're going to have a voting system, what you really need, and then I'll explain why this is dumb also, you need what the Constitution tried to do, which was to actually have rules on that some things aren't going to be voted on. Like we're not, or I guess the Congress can change the Constitution, but you kind of need like the Constitution to say the government's not allowed to run a deficit. And then you can correct for that. Or like there's a maximum tax rate. But then you end up at the point where you're like, well, whoever made those decisions, why wouldn't you just have them make all decisions? Which is kind of the counter argument to voting at all, is that if there's some things that we should be taking out of the hands of voters, why is it just those things? Aren't there other things that maybe a select group of people could, just to go full circle with this, as I explained to you that none of us know anything and that all of these approaches probably have their flaws. The idea that any group of people should be allowed to vote and other people shouldn't be allowed to vote, I think every single time the in-group is just basically a larger group of government, and they're going to vote for their power and things that benefit them at the expense of the group that can't vote.
Well, but more importantly, I think that whatever the electorate is, whether it was what it was in 1789 or whatever it is now, like the people who own and operate the state and who, I'm talking both, the bankers and all that stuff, they know how to game the system and use the media and to get the result they want, to create the conditions, like the conditions we have now, which is I hate my party, but I hate the other party 10 times more.
Right.
So I am going to restrict my choices to these two. The choices are 2, and I'm going to vote this way. And so whatever
I want to be
the
clear,
system is, that's
I'm not defending the current system.
Yeah. No, yeah, I know.
I'm making two specific points. One, the idea that limiting the current voter base to select groups would improve the system. I don't agree with that. I think you're just creating more opportunities for the in-group to rob from the not in-group. Yeah. And then also, just to go back to the Vivek criticism, the idea that engaging in public service makes you a better citizen than mastering what you're interested in and then providing value to the market. That to me is the most noble thing that you could do.
Right.
And so to force people in their productive years to engage in volunteer work for the state is, I don't think, it makes no sense to me. It's not beneficial to society. What's beneficial to society is when just remove the socialism so that there's more consequences for bad choices, so that 22 to 24-year-olds have to take their future a little bit more seriously because there isn't as many safeguards, and you'll end up further along in this process.
Yeah, I mean, what he's proposing is basically the draft, but instead of like...
Yeah, it's for volunteer work. It's the draft for volunteer work.
Which is premised on the state or the collective owns you all or in part, and therefore, you have to like do your time to get your freedom back to do what you want to do with your life, which is completely...
It's going to end, if you even had that, you'd end up kids doing, which we've all had unpaid internships where you're just doing some job that like someone in some office didn't want to do, that they somehow suckered you. It'll just be a bigger version of that, where offices figure out how they get the kids that are doing the government volunteer work. That's it. Yep. I promise you, it'll just be more robbed labor from 18 to 20-year-olds who can't advance their careers, while some hot chicks pretend like they're working in orphanages and posting it on Instagram for social credit.
Yeah. There's 3 or 4 types of ways you could approach that, and not much of value would actually be done. The only reason he's proposing it is because he has this notion as a conservative that somehow we have to buy into something bigger than us and all that stuff. But like, to me, like, that's what freedom does. We all get to decide what's the bigger, more important thing for ourselves. And if we all have to go in on what some politician says is meritorious, I mean, it's just dumb. But I don't know.
I do like the fact that he's offering commission to people who campaign for him. I thought that was cute.
Oh, why? What's his deal?
I don't know.
I'll do a hard turn right now. Is there money in it?
I didn't
Sure,
look
I'll
too
go
deep
preach,
into
Vivek.
it. All I know is he's offering commission. He's gonna pay people to campaign for him, and I was like, damn, that's a smart move.
Well, I mean,
the other guys get people to do it for free, so I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.
He's going to ruin the market for politicians.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Force the other guys to pay because the talented people are just going to his campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was something else on my radar that was up there. Oh, so I know, Robbie, you kind of watch the economy and stuff a lot, and you're when I've heard you talk about on Dave's show and stuff, you're pretty intelligent and kind of have the pulse on things. Like, what do you so you mentioned Vivek and the Woke Inc. with the ESG stuff. Like, what do you think of all that? And is the tide turning on that, or is it, how do you see the economy? I think it's a pretty dangerous thing, and I think they're already trying to rebrand it or whatever, but I don't see that going away anytime soon. I think that's going to be a problem for a long time.
Well, I just pretend to be informed. That's kind of my specialty. But
just pretend away. Go for it.
I mean, the picture looks somewhat promising in that a lot of the policies they try to implement are already starting to fail on them. I mean, Larry Fink himself said that they're not going to use the words ESG anymore, which the fact that one of the most powerful people with, I'm sure, the largest marketing team in the entire world working along with the Fed and the NSA, like, there's no way that the government branches, your most sophisticated marketing people, didn't sit around and decide the ESG thing and spent a lot of money to try and sell it to us, and it didn't work. They have to get rid of it. Now, that's not to say that they're not going to continue to try and rig the markets for their benefit. Of course they will. I mean, there's a reason why Larry Fink managed to get $9 or $10 trillion under management, and there's a reason why he's tied in with the Fed. There's a reason why the last time there were bailouts, it was processed through him. Like, yeah, the guy's trying to rig the markets so that investments that wouldn't be profitable are profitable. Like, it's very simple. And he's robbing all of us of our wealth in the process, and he's preaching socialism for more control for the elite. I mean, I've summed it up to just the elites don't want to compete. Is that racket going to change? Of course not. But they've already had tremendous failures in trying to do it. Like, I haven't dug in yet, and I know, Brandi, you mentioned it just before we started, but the Netherlands, they were trying to get rid of nitrogen, which apparently using nitrogen, it, like, increases crop yields, I think, by, like, 30%. And especially when they were talking about last year with how much food production was declining because of the Ukrainian war. I mean, of, like, all the things that, fine, if you believe in global warming, do you think the first place to start fighting that is by reducing food supplies by 30%? Yeah. I would understand, like, I'm just saying, unless you're evil, if you look at a world where not everyone's being fed right now and you want to deal with this supposed problem of global warming, wouldn't you start with food supplies last And so anyways, and like they displaced a major industry in creating laws that made no sense, as it was just going to decrease farm yields. And I think that got overthrown. Sri Lanka fell apart. That was like a big BlackRock ESG movement. I don't know if this Ukraine war is going to hold up or it's too popular. I think you look at green energy initiatives even within the United States. I mean, the problem is some of what they've done is already permanent, in that you have to invest in infrastructure now for projects that might make a difference to like supply line and oil 10 or 15 years from now. And I think they already signaled to the oil industry that, maybe you don't want to invest in a refinery that you're not going to be making money on for 15 years because we might legislate it away. Whereas, hey, you guys can slow down your production and maximize the profit on what you pretend is a finite resource anyways. But that's very conspiratorial to say that oil is not a finite resource.
Well, and what I was saying before, that the Netherlands prime minister just resigned, and people are thinking that that's a win, and that might be the farmers market might be winning that fight in the Netherlands, which hopefully. But I agree. I think like with the ESG and with the WEF, I think that they're starting to realize that their branding is shit. And
it's not just their branding shit. It's that they're lying to us, and people are starting to realize, like, I don't like being lied to. And even like people on the left, the second they have to actually make sacrifices in their own life in the name of global warming, they don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And what, in the name of carbon? It's like a fucking voodoo monster that you're telling me is going to ruin my life. All right, maybe. You know what I mean? It's a very tough sell for people. And so it's nice conceptually. Oh, yeah, I love the environment and evil corporations are ruining it. But then all of a sudden when they come for your oven, when all of a sudden your property value plummets because you're forced to make repairs to your house that you can't afford, and no one can afford to do them. And you know what I mean? It's like when it starts actually hitting people's lifestyles and their wallets, they don't want it anymore. As long as it's like some magical thing and a sacrifice that someone else is going to have to make, they love it. Yeah, there's some evil corporation out there and they're polluting too much. We better go stop that evil corporation. Oh, if that evil corporation stopped polluting, then you're going to have this car instead. It's going to cost you blank more money, and you're not even going to be able to drive it as regularly as you were your gas vehicle. Well, fuck that. You see what I'm saying? It's like people like it while it's conceptual. When it starts actually affecting their lifestyles, no one's going for it.
Yeah, it's like when people, like, the environment is one of those things that everybody, like, if you poll people of like, oh, should we do this, that, and the other, you get like 80%, yes, we should recycle or whatever. But like, if you ask people to list their most important issues, like, nobody comes up with that, right? It's I hate the term virtue signaling, but it's very easy to take the right position on something that you've been told is the right position all your life. But like, if there's no formula for your baby or, something like that, then people, I think, will abandon that pretty quickly. But like on the ESG stuff and the rebranding of it, like I think of that as being similar to like the recent affirmative action thing from the Supreme Court. They're like, okay, can't do affirmative action this way. And like Harvard and other places are like, yeah, we're still going to do this. We're just going to find a different way to do it that complies with the law. And I think that's what the ESG stuff, they're always going to try to, it's a cartel, right? They try to, the people who have made it, they want to stay at the top. So they want to game the system that to borrow money, you have to do things their way. And so they might lessen some of the woke aspects of it or whatever. But I think it's going to be the same thing. It's just they're just going to relabel it.
Yeah, but it requires a massive amount of control over media and information. Mm-hmm. And as much as they have tried to do that, they're not really able to do it at this time. It could be that we get to a future point in time in which they figure out full control over the internet the same way that they had it on television and radio. But at the moment, they don't have it. And I bet Larry Fink, when he got started on this thing, he didn't think anyone was going to criticize him. He didn't think you know what I mean? I bet that the same way with the COVID vaccines, I don't even think they expected that there would be this many smart people who are able to get their information out there to go, hey, this doesn't make any sense. I think the fact is they learned with Donald Trump, oh, shit, we have to start controlling social media, because unless we're controlling social media, look at what just happened to us. We just lost our game. Our game is we get to pick who's president. And then all of a sudden with Donald Trump being able to, firstly, Obama did it a little bit, the election before that with Facebook, but like the system woke up to the fact like, oh, we don't have the same control over information in the way that we did. And so over the last, let's say, 6 years, they've ramped down on social media and the internet in a way that we had never seen. Yeah. And even so, you and I were still able to get our message out. We've been able to influence a lot of people, and they're losing the battle as we speak in terms of their ability to control social media. The Biden administration was just told that they're not allowed to, make veiled threats of, hey, we don't think this should be on your platform. They're not allowed to engage with social media companies in that way. So I'm a little bit hopeful that as long as we have free speech, truth wins. People are interested in truth. You know what I mean? Like, truth is valuable to people. Bullshit is not. Like, on a long enough time frame, like if I keep listening to Fox or CNN, you pick your flavor, and they're giving me bad information, that doesn't help my life. It doesn't help me to continuously make bad decisions off of not truthful information. Like, truth wins out. And unless they don't allow any truth to make it to market, at some point people go, oh, this guy's being truthful and this guy's lying. Yeah. And so I'm just saying, I don't think they win the battle over truth and information on a long enough timeline. And so, I don't think Larry Fink's going to win.
What if the REINS Act gets passed? Like,
what was that?
The REINS Act, like one of those, there's a few bills that are being proposed to be legislated that are trying to basically censor the internet. I think the REINS Act is mainly targeted toward TikTok, but it's always never just to TikTok. Like, right. It's always never about just towards the thing that it says it's about.
The scary part with the data collection is that it could turn the other way, that with like just AI, with all of us having phones and with the possibility of a digital currency, it's just much easier to control a population than it's ever been in the past. Like, that's kind of the nature of good and evil and technological developments, is that, anything that comes into the world can be good or bad. But I don't know. I don't see them winning the fight.
I love that you're white-pilled, Robbie. Yay!
Yeah, it could just be that I really like telling jokes and it's going better than it's ever been for me. So I just feel good about life right now.
So I know we don't have you for much longer, but who do you have in the Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg cage fight or whatever?
So, I just see Zuckerberg as being the world's biggest pussy. So I just don't see him winning. And then I was also joking on my podcast that at first I was annoyed because I was like, you got these supposedly brilliant engineers. It's like, firstly, they're making common people like me just look like total fucking pussies that I don't know how to fight. It's like all of a sudden the tech billionaire dorks are getting into fights and challenging each other to cage matches. It's like, what excuse do I have now to not go do MMA? And I'm just trying to focus on my comedy. But when you have your tech nerds, you know what I mean? Can you imagine if back in the day Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were going to go fight each other? They wouldn't do that. They're tech nerds. They're winning by making money. I'm sure he would, but I'm just saying it's like they're making the rest of us look like a bunch of pussies that the tech nerds are going to learn karate and martial arts. But then I realized that this is actually going to be an engineering game, because, Mark Zuckerberg will probably just download karate into his brain by practicing in 3D. But then, Musk might have a trick up his sleeve where he's got those little brain chips, so maybe he'll hack into the 80% of his brain that we don't even normally use. You know what I mean? So to me, this is like the best version of BattleBots you've ever seen.
Well, it's like the Matrix, where he gives them the little program, and all of a sudden you know all the martial arts. So,
and who knows how these people are going to cheat? They're going to juice themselves up, adrenochrome, new baby parts. Like, we're talking about
the. You guys actually think this is going to happen? You don't think it's a troll?
I think it's a troll on Elon's part. I think he might be trolling. I think Zuckerberg is autistic enough that he might fall for it.
Be serious?
Like, he might show up, he might show up for the weigh-in.
Right. They're both autistic.
I think there's a thing about, especially if you're as rich as Zuckerberg, and he's been training probably, like, let's just say every day for 2 years, I bet he feels the best about himself that he's ever felt.
Right.
And like, he's, wealthy. He's spending a lot of money with his trainers. They have him feeling pretty good about it. So I bet he thinks that he could win a fight. I feel like I've never trained in my whole life, and I feel like I could take Zuckerberg. He's probably taller than me too, but he's just a fucking pussy.
When's the last time you think Zuckerberg was in a room with someone who told him no? Or told him, like...
Is he married?
Yeah, but what I'm saying
But to an
is,
Asian spy, so she's just nice to him all the time.
yeah, she's deployed by TikTok to spy on Facebook by marrying Zuckerberg. But no, I think it's like I think it's a troll for Elon, but I think a guy like Zuckerberg, like, I just think that just is like deep insecurity of like, he just knows that he knows what he is and he's trying to prove to himself something else. And
Wouldn't it be awesome if they actually gambled their platforms? Winner takes all.
that would
Twitter
be great.
Twitter against Instagram, like winner take all. That'd be pretty great.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think it's gonna happen though.
Yeah.
No. I just think it's funny that Elon tweeted out that Zuck is a cuck.
Well, and Zuckerberg is ramping up the heat by opening up the gay Twitter.
Oh, good copy and pasting.
Yeah.
It's such a like tech thing to do. That's like all they do. They just like copy and paste code. Just like
Rebrand, market. Yeah.
What are you talking about, Rob? What's Zuckerberg
Threads
gay Twitter?
on
What's that?
Instagram.
Yeah, he
Or-
started Threads, which seems to be all the celebrities are, the whole censorship regime is just moving over there because they couldn't censor Twitter anymore. So he gave them an alternative.
Oh, so he's making a version of Twitter and putting it on Facebook, just like
Yeah, and a lot of the celebrities have already supposedly jumped ship.
Okay.
Mhm.
They're on Team Zucker.
Oh my
Zucker
goodness.
cuck.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. The whole I'm consciously trying to spend less and less time on social media, and my already precarious mental health is improving slightly.
I'm making a real effort with it, and I'm pretty close to getting like a dumb phone.
Yeah.
I find when I'm out of my house, if I'm out with people, I'm not a look at my phone person. Like that's just not like if I'm engaged, I'm not looking at my phone. But I do find that the social media, it's like the same as any other addiction where it's like if I eat cake in the morning, I'm eating unhealthy all day.
Yeah.
It's like if I start my day looking at social media, that's just like, or I start my day watching TV, and whatever way you kind of placate your brain and it just kind of shuts off, it just stays off, and then like you're just looking to be passive. And I find with myself, like I got rid of video games years ago. I got rid of TV years ago. But then like somehow I got sucked into like, I only have social media accounts because I got rid of Facebook nearly instantly when it came around years ago because I was like, I'm just wasting time on this. But then I got sucked in more with oh, you got to promote your gigs. You got to tweet. You got to do this. And then what really suckered me was like, you would tweet and then you're like, do people like this? Do people like this? It's like getting that, like, at least with stage, when you get up on stage, you do your joke and then you leave. And it's like, you either live with it, they liked it or they didn't like it. With social media, it's like a little room where they're talking about you all the time. Hey, did they like me? Do they like me? Do they like me? Right? And then I find I get sucked in and then like, for example, I would never turn on TV. Like, I learned that a long time ago. I used to get annoyed if you're, like, trying to pack up in the morning or something from a hotel room and someone puts on the TV. Like, I'll turn it off, like, because I get sucked in and it's like, this is stupid bullshit. I don't need the noise. But now I do that with YouTube. It's like, whenever I'm bored, hey, is there a clip I can watch? And I find it's, I'm dealing with it because, like, I'm like, man, I'm kind of compulsive and I managed to get rid of, like, like all the shit that I used to waste time on. Like, I don't follow football anymore. Like, there's so many things that, like, I was sucked into, and then somehow social media feels like a little bit more passive than those other, like, platforms that I used to waste time, but it definitely it's a time suck.
It's hard for me because I work remote, so, like, and I work on my laptop, like,
Right.
making graphics and stuff, so, like, it's just there.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, no,
so it's
I
hard
have
for
that
me not
also.
to.
It's like when you're in an office, you're not allowed to go onto Twitter or YouTube. You don't. But I work it at home. And then at any given point in time, you could just be like, all right, I'm bored. I'll watch a clip on YouTube. And then it's 2 hours later and I've watched random plot lines from The Sopranos for no reason,
Well,
like,
that's 2 hours well spent, though. Let me say.
yeah, all right, fair
The
enough.
Sopranos, come on. But yeah, I'm the same way that when I'm in like waiting rooms and stuff these days, I'm like deciding to be the absolute weirdo. My phone's in my pocket and I'm just like looking around and watching every other person from age 65 to age 3 who is like on a screen, and it's just like I can't believe this is the world we live in.
And I'm able to fool myself that it's productive because I get a lot of show topics from Twitter.
Yeah.
So some of the scrolling, like some of the scrolling is for work, but constant scrolling isn't productive. And then a lot of times I'll listen to news clips or podcasts that are relevant to what people are talking about for show topics. So that is productive. But then all the time that you end up wasting, like where I went to go watch, Rand Paul versus Fauci, and then I'm just now on. The problem is with YouTube, because like I always listen to music when I work. And then YouTube became the place where I listen to music, as opposed to like turning on the radio or archive.org. I used to listen to jam bands off of. But it's like once you're on YouTube, that sidebar, it just, it's endless what you can click on.
Yeah, and they know it's designed specifically to grab your brain and hold on to it. So, and it's designed for each one of us because it knows what we like. So
right.
But anything else on your mind? I brought your. You are going to be in Seattle. So
that's not till later. I'll tell you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's not till August. So.
Okay, Easter.
This week I'm doing a free gig for anyone who's going to Freedom Fest down in Memphis. The Thursday night we're doing a Meacock after party, and I'll be doing stand-up comedy at it, hanging out. So that's just totally free. You're down there Thursday night. There's a Meacock party going on. I have the link up on my website, RobbieTheFire.com, with the link to that, and you can just come out. And then Saturday I'm in Milwaukee. Sunday I'm in some random ass Madison.
Cottage Grove,
Wisconsin. And then the following week we're doing Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas is going to be a full stand-up comedy show with some of the absolute funniest people who are working in Austin, along with myself and BK Chris, and then we'll be doing a live podcast with Scott Horton. Saturday night I'm in Houston, Texas, and the Comedy Club actually gave me a primetime spot, which is very rare. As I've been telling you guys about the censorship, come support out on that one. Show the comedy clubs that the Meacock Nation is strong and wants to, support some live comedy. And then on Saturday, that's Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday I'm doing an independent gig in the desert of Albuquerque. So that's the next 6 gigs.
Oh, great.
When's Freedom Fest?
It's this weekend. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I'm so sad.
Yeah.
I wanted to go. Looks like I can't.
Yeah, even though I'm in Tennessee, that's like a 6-hour drive from.
I have. You should come out to every summer. I am in Bon Aqua, Tennessee, at my friend Andrew's farm.
I was looking at that.
That's been a really fun gig. He built us a theater. Like, he didn't build us a theater. He built us like a nice stage. Okay. And the first year I was out there was like 40 people. Last year was already like 60 or 70. And he's got this big property. So I'm hoping for this year will be the biggest year that we've done that one. And then I'm also hoping that people will show up in the afternoon and tailgate, and it's going to be like a whole hangout day. So definitely come out for it.
I might actually be able to do that when I was looking at that. So, all right, man, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll keep telling people about your stuff. I'll try to send an email out to the Meacock list, and if you're not on that
please
list, if you're not on the list, takehumanaction.com to sign up, support the Mises Caucus, all that. Brandi, you have anything special going on before we say goodbye?
No, I streaming Wednesday, Thursday.
What video
on
games?
Twitch. What video games?
Yeah, what are you playing these days?
Right now, Fallout 76.
Okay, I don't know
is
nothing
my
about
vibe.
it. I'm so out of the video game. It's so great that you're able to monetize that. I go right back to video games. If people want to pay me to play video games, I'll get back into video games.
Well, Brandi, you should have Robbie on.
Yeah, let's play some video games.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm good at any of them anymore.
You can just tell jokes. That's like basically what you do. You just play video games to tell jokes.
It's not bad.
At it.
You know what? I give up at comedy.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.